Joining BYU Sports Nation right now via the Deseret First Credit Union hotline is Paul Myerberg, college football writer and insider from USA Today. Paul, welcome to BYU Sports Nation.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I would like to read an excerpt from the article you released on Sunday, and it is as follows. Quote, "The growing legend of Tanner Mangum is being written live for 3 hours every Saturday, and its most charming aspect is this. He doesn't know any better than to apologize with a smile and a laugh on the tail end of another miracle." Paul, have you ever, in your experience covering college football, seen anything close to this?
No. And that's the easiest answer I can give is no. I mean, I racked my brain on Saturday night as I was thinking about how I would write this and what I'd write about Tanner Mangum if I'd ever seen anything like it. I've seen Hail Marys. I've seen desperation heaves. I've seen fourth-quarter touchdowns. I've seen Jameis Winston throw to Kelvin Benjamin to win the national championship with seconds left, but I've never seen anything quite like this. And there's just every moment is, and my advice, and I've kind of said this before. I think that my advice is, I said it to Mangum after the game. I was just like, I hope every game that you have the rest of your career is this much fun, win or lose. Just try to enjoy this because it can't last. Because this kind of magical stuff can't last. It's just how life and how sports go. But it has been nothing short of magical. It really hasn't.
We've gotten to know Tanner as he's become the BYU quarterback, and of course, it's a thing now. You got to get to know the backup at BYU, I guess, because he plays every year now, unfortunately. But Tanner Mangum is an interesting cat. What surprised you about him when you met him?
And nothing really surprised me. I mean, I knew that he was going to be a little more mature than your typical freshman. I mean, he was 22, so I wasn't totally surprised by his composure or, just how smart he came off or just how confident he seemed. I think not knowing anything, I imagine that the years that he's had away from football, doing his mission, has kind of matured him at a faster rate. I mean, me at 22 was, not anywhere close to Tanner Mangum at 22. So I imagine that he's a little more advanced just in terms of his maturity level. But what Mendenhall told me after the game is that this is who he was at 18. He remembers going into his house and recruiting him, and he called it a home of excellence, and that the family was kind of not in this quarterback dad way or in that Monday morning way, but just kind of stressing perfection in a very happy way and in a positive way. So I think this is just who he is. I know he seems mature, but I think he's just a mature guy going back to when he was 18. Obviously, he's enjoying it. I mean, I was not surprised to see that he was having the time of his life, and I would think deservedly so.
Paul Myerberg of USA Today joining us on BYU Sports Nation. In conversations you're having right now with colleagues and other national writers and analysts, Paul, are people buying into BYU, or do they think this is just a fluke?
I'm buying into it because I've seen it. I can't say if everyone's doing the same. I don't really think that BYU is going to beat UCLA on Saturday. I think UCLA is a really, really good football team. It's funny. I looked at the line, or I think I overheard the line when I was driving to the airport on Monday, and it's like 18 or 17, whatever
17.
it is. That's a little high, and I think and I hate to. I'll leave it to the coaches to play the disrespect card, but I think that's a little high considering the teams that BYU has defeated so far. I think Nebraska's going to end up winning. I think they'll end up winning the Big Ten West. I think Boise is an elite football team. So I think that's not totally in line with what I think of BYU as a team. But, yeah, I think you need to team. I think you need to see what they've done to truly grasp, what kind of a team this is. And I was lucky enough to see that on Saturday night.
It's a Wednesday, and we're a sports talk show, so we went hypothetical today on our Twitter question. If BYU beats UCLA, then what? What do you think, Paul?
Well, if they beat UCLA, what we just spoke about kind of gets realized, and that it's not just like credibility, but people start talking about BYU, and I know that that's kind of been the program and the school's goal since they went independence, was to get people talking about BYU, to get on the national radar. That's the win that puts BYU on the national radar. So you think about that. I mean, that's an immediate kind of positive, and you really can't overstate that. But I was thinking about it after the game on Saturday. If they beat UCLA, I think Michigan's a better football team than they were last week. They'll be a better team at the end of September that they'll be this week. That's a tough game, but you look down the line, you beat UCLA, which I think is a really tall order. You go into Michigan and you beat a Michigan team that is flawed but still plays very hard. I mean, you're leaving yourself up, like if you're BYU, you're in a position where you start dreaming big a little bit. So I know there's that game against Missouri. Utah State's a really good team, but you start thinking big. So I think that's the immediate thing, is that you beat UCLA, and then those kind of things that are only hushed and whispered about on message boards and when you're having, your morning breakfast at the diner, that becomes a reality because you can start dreaming about a situation where this team could be 10-0, 9-0 going into Missouri and maybe thinking about, I don't want to say it, but you know what we're thinking about.
I was the same way in the first segment. I was like, "Hey, let's get through September and just see what happens."
Yeah, no, we don't want to say those three letters yet, but they're in the alphabet, and you can start thinking about it if you beat UCLA.
Follow him on Twitter at Paul Myerberg, USA Today college football writer. Paul Myerberg with us on BYU Sports Nation. The Cougars jumped 8 spots in the AP poll. They were 2 out at 27. Now they're number 19. Some people think that's high. Other fans that wear really blue goggles think it's not high enough for BYU. Paul, where would you rank BYU right now?
Yeah, I got them in the same range. I think the only good thing that they did this week is that, and I'm only saying this because they're rivals, not because I'm like catering or pandering, but it is right that they're ahead of Utah. I mean, I saw them on Friday night. I didn't think they looked that good against Utah State, but I think 19 to 17, I think my top 25, I think they're 18 BYU, which I think is fair as long as they're ahead of Boise State and obviously ahead of Nebraska. Everything is right in the world. But, yeah, I think, again, to look ahead, you beat UCLA, I'd have them probably between 12 and 9.
Wow.
Because I think that's the kind of win. Look, UCLA, they've got their own freshman QB, and I saw him play last summer, and I came away from watching him throw for 3 days thinking that's the greatest young quarterback I've ever seen.
Whoa.
Ever. Yeah, and I mean that, and he's lived up to it so far. So you beat that team. Their only weak link is a true freshman quarterback who's the greatest young quarterback that my eyes have ever seen. That's a really good football team. So you win that game 12-9. I think that's only fair. Then from there, you won't have any marquee wins until Missouri if you're BYU, but you just start to win by attrition. If you stay undefeated, you eventually, as a team, start to move up in the polls.
So Josh Rosen, chosen Rosen, Matt Stevens, the analyst for UCLA, who actually crushed BYU in '85 as a player, has said that he's Troy Aikman-esque. What is it about Rosen when you saw him play that makes him, the best young quarterback you had ever seen?
It's funny. I don't know if I said this last summer, but I remember thinking, man, this kid looks like Troy Aikman. And I think it's the build. I think it's the almost perfect technique. It's the muscle memory that everything from snap to delivery is perfect, and it's replicable, and he just does it over and over again. He's like he was made in the lab as a quarterback, and you just made him to play quarterback. It's all he's meant to do, and it's ability beyond his years, I think, and not just the arm, because you see Tanner's got that arm. I mean, the throw that he made on the third play of the game against Boise State kind of just rocked me. That throw was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So he has the arm. I think Rosen just has the perfection in a sense. I'm not saying he's perfect, but in terms of what you'd want a quarterback to be at this age or almost at any age in college, he has that. So, you start at that with the baseline, and you give him, a good coach in Mora, a really good offensive coordinator in Mazzoni. You sense the possibilities are almost limitless. So, here's the thing, though. Just like Mangum, he's due to have his freshman Saturday. One of those QBs on Saturday probably is going to have that first kind of sour moment. Mangum has thrown picks, but maybe for Rosen it's a pick 6. Maybe it's some pressure because BYU was able to get pressure on Saturday night. You expect him to get rattled. I don't think he's going to get shell-shocked, but there is going to be times when he plays like a freshman. It might be on Saturday.
Top 20 matchup in the Rose Bowl this Saturday night. We are talking with Paul Myerberg of USA Today Sports. We anticipate that it will be an electric atmosphere in Southern California. But I want to talk about what you experienced at LaVell Edwards Stadium last Saturday night, Paul, in the whiteout at LES. What makes BYU unique compared to some of the other venues that you have watched college football in?
Well, it is beautiful. And I was told about this going into the game before I went to Utah. It's my first trip to both that and Rice-Eccles. And I said, oh, man, I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I was at the Utah game, and I took a picture. And I said, oh, this is beautiful. And the guy was like, well, wait till you get to Provo Saturday night. And it is a beautiful scene. It's like the mountains are right on top of you. So that is a memorable just venue, period. But on the field before the game, and I know the Boise State coaches pretty well. So I was hanging out with them, and we were chatting and laughing and yada, yada, yada. And as BYU came on the field, and these are punters, and these are backup quarterbacks, and offensive linemen going through drills, it was such a steady roar. And I think in that back corner on the BYU side is the student section. It was all white, kind of in that by the end zone.
Yep.
And it was super loud. And it was I think the coaches knew, Boise State coaches knew getting in that it wasn't just going to be 60 minutes of physical play. It was going to be 60 minutes of kind of noise. And if you're a team, even if you're a Boise State team that has kind of embraced going on the road and being an underdog, they knew going in it was going to be tough. And I think the crowd, especially in the fourth quarter, was a huge advantage. I mean, you talk about those guys going down 28-24 with a minute left, deep inside their own territory. You almost knew with those guys, those fans on their back, that Boise State was not going to do anything. So, I've heard that's a great home environment, lived up to every expectation. I think it's something clearly, is an asset for BYU as it is for a lot of great programs across the country.
Paul, is it weird that Taysom Hill is not a storyline anymore? Like
Yeah.
2 weeks later, all of a sudden, it's like no mentions of him and no effect because BYU's won these games?
I know. It is kind of weird, right? I mean, for those 3 days after he got hurt, it was just, heartfelt, get better Taysom, all that stuff. I don't think for a moment he's forgotten within the fan base, and I know he's not forgotten within that locker room. I remember talking to Mangum after the game, and he spoke about what Taysom Hill meant to him. It's funny, in that kind of bigger press conference, someone asked Tanner, did you notice when they put up the placards for Taysom at the I guess it was the start of the fourth quarter, at some point in the fourth quarter? And the kind of like the traditional response from any player, particularly a quarterback, is no, I was really focused on the game. Fans say a lot of things, but I'm so focused on the game. I'm just yada yada. And he was like, no, I saw it, and he kind of implied that had an impact on him. So I think Taysom Hill, even if he's not today around the program, clearly he's not going to play the rest of the year. Inside the locker room, he's a key figure, especially for Tanner Mangum, who. You go back, his only experience on campus playing football before June was as a freshman in spring football when him and Taysom were both freshmen. I know Taysom was a little older, but, those guys were together then. And just like, 4 years ago, I imagine Taysom Hill is going to be a resource for Tanner right now.
Paul, great stuff. I hope, and so do many BYU fans, that the Cougars are still one of your headline topics as a writer at USA Today Sports come mid-October.
Well, I'll be at the game on Saturday, so if BYU wins, then I'll be 2-0 in attendance, and this may need to become, a normal thing.
We will do that for sure. Paul, thanks for the time.
You got it, guys. Talk to you again soon.